Here's a story out of Nogales that hasn't gotten much attention in the Tucson area, but it should. The State Department of Education has found evidence of cheating on the Ames test, Arizona's yearly high-stakes test, at a Nogales middle school. Now, the reason this story deserves our attention is it's not just a story about one school in southern Arizona. It's about the much larger issue of what happens when we put too much importance on yearly high-stakes testing. Okay, here's the story. Last year, the Arizona Department of Education found strong evidence that answers on some tests at Wade Carpenter Middle School in Nogales Unified School District had been changed. Some of the test papers had an unusual number of wrong answers erased and right answers bubbled in, far beyond what you would expect from students checking their work and spotting mistakes. That's not absolute proof of cheating on the test, but it's pretty damning. It's very, very unlikely that a large number of students would check over their tests, spot that many wrong answers, and change them to right answers. From a statistical standpoint, honestly, it borders on the impossible. What most likely happened was, after the students handed in their tests, some adults went in and erased wrong answers and replaced them with right answers. Based on the evidence, this has been going on since 2010. Now, the district has promised to make a thorough investigation of the situation, but I have to say I'm not confident that it'll be as thorough as it needs to be. It takes lots of work to get to the bottom of these test tampering schemes, and it brings a lot of pain to the district. The one time a test cheating situation like this was thoroughly investigated was in Atlanta, Georgia. Just recently, prison sentences were handed down for a group of teachers and administrators who participated in the cheating scheme. The first hint of a problem in Atlanta was similar to what happened in Nogales. Someone spotted a suspicious pattern of wrong to right erasures on the tests at an Atlanta school, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was called in. After a long, very long, grueling investigation, staff members confessed to making changes on the test. The cheating has been going on for years. The story got lots of national attention in the newspapers and magazines across the country. I covered it in a story on the show last September, and for good reason. Before the cheating was discovered, the Atlanta School District had been showered with praise for its students' outstanding achievement. Obama's Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, made a special trip to a district middle school to give it a Dispelling the Myth Award. The Atlanta superintendent was named Superintendent of the Year by the American Association of School Administrators. The high scores were a source of civic pride for the entire city because everyone was sure Atlanta had shown the country that minority students from low-income homes can exceed expectations. Schools across the country were asked, if Atlanta can do it, why can't you? I would love to say the Atlanta cheating scandal was an exception, that it was the only place where this kind of thing happened, but the fact is similar patterns of wrong to right erasures have been found in schools across the country. A nationwide study by USA Today a few years ago showed evidence of cheating in a number of school districts, and when the Arizona Republic looked at Arizona schools, it found similar patterns, but few of these incidences of possible cheating have been investigated. It takes a lot of digging to find out what happened, and it's always unpleasant. It's easier to just forget it. Well, like the schools in Atlanta, Wade Charter Middle School in Nogales has received all kinds of praise for its high scores. In 2012, it was selected by the Arizona Department of Education as the Distinguished Title I School for the entire state of Arizona. That meant a $5,000 award for the school and a trip with bragging rights to a national conference in Nashville for the administrators. And when people talk about Arizona schools that defy the odds, they always mention Nogales, where students from low-income, often Spanish-speaking homes just north of the Mexico border are succeeding beyond normal expectations, they say, while similar students in other districts aren't doing nearly as well. If the staff at Wade Carpenter Middle School cheated on the tests, and it's pretty certain they did, they made schools across southern Arizona that are playing by the rules look bad by comparison. Now, I hope this doesn't sound like I'm bashing Nogales schools, their teachers, or their administrators. I'm not. I devoted my professional career to public school teaching, and I know how seriously most teachers take their jobs. I'm absolutely certain that Nogales teachers love their students. and put their hearts and souls into their work like all the people who I worked with did. And it may be that their students actually are doing very well in their studies, though not as well as the test scores indicate, of course. At least I hope that's true. The school's atmosphere, the students' attitudes about themselves seem to have changed for the better over the past few years. One of the more surprising findings in the Atlanta cheating scandal is that it looks like students' work was actually improving during that time based on other measures separate from the state tests, and I hope that's true of the Wade school as well. Though the staff members who participated in the cheating have to take responsibility for their actions, the real culprit here is the culture of high-stakes testing that began with the Bush administration's No Child Left Behind and has been continued by the Obama administration. It's inevitable that if you create a situation where teachers and administrators live and die by test scores, where schools can be closed down if their students don't do well on the tests, you're guaranteed that cheating of one kind or another is going to happen in schools around the country, and especially schools with low-income students where low scores can lead to serious consequences.
I agree, Dave. I mean, this is a problem that, we've created in essence, and it doesn't excuse the behavior of educators that go in and erase bad test scores and put in the correct test scores. But to see the teachers in Atlanta actually going to prison was a really shocking thing to see and very disturbing. And when you read the in-depth stories about those teachers, and a lot of times it is the administrators that have gone back and done this, by the way. It's not always the teachers. It can be someone else who had access to the tests and they change a whole bunch of them at once. But when reading about the educators in Atlanta who were responsible for it, what I took away from that was they were very devoted to their kids and to their community and to their schools. And what was at stake there if their kids didn't do well was so high and the consequences so dire, and they knew what it was going to mean if those schools closed in those communities. And so they did something that was wrong, but it also was with motivations that were, I think, well-intentioned. And we should not be putting professionals in that catch-22 that they're caught in.
There's a marvelous article in the New Yorker a while back, maybe a year back or something like that, went this in detail, and it was heartbreaking because I knew these teachers who they were talking about. These were dedicated people who brought clothes for the kids and food, took them to their homes at times when their homes were so bad that they couldn't live there, did everything possible, and they got pulled into this thing where they felt that they were doing it for the students. And then it steamrolled, it grew, because otherwise schools would close, teachers would lose their jobs. It was terrible. And imagine now, and I can easily see this, a 7th grade teacher cheats for whatever reason. I'm the 8th grade teacher. The students come into my class. If I give them the test without cheating, the scores go down. I'm a bad teacher, or so it looks. So in a sense, I'm pushed into a situation, other teachers are pushed into a situation of keeping up with that one or those 2 or 3 teachers who are doing this, and it becomes a horrible snowball. We just can't do this for any number of reasons, and this being one of them. These standardized tests are corrupting and destroying our public school system.
They are. Sort of just hearing you discuss it that way reminds me of, sort of the doping scandals that have occurred with the cyclists, where, are you going to be out there competing against everyone else who is, using the drugs? Are you going to be the one that says no and loses as a consequence? And it's not quite the same, because that's obviously, just related to your own personal career. I think that the teachers involved in these scandals have cared not just about their careers, but about their students and about the community, and that's sort of the extra sad twist to all of this.
And if we come back to Tucson schools, which are always getting denigrated and put down for not doing a good enough job for their students, any number of times I hear people say, look at Nogales. Why can't you do what Nogales is doing? And they're putting a false bar up there that doesn't really exist, that other teachers are being put down.
Well, and something interesting, Dave, just in the piece that you wrote about this and the comment stream that was on there, I thought it was very interesting that there was a TUSD staff member who posted a comment and said, when these tests are given in TUSD, just for example, they are seized afterwards. So we never have access to them. And so I think that there are some districts that have put in place protocols that make it less easy for these types of scandals to occur.
In Nogales, from what I read in the Nogales papers, it really wasn't covered in the Tucson papers, they're putting in greater strenuous protocols where apparently the teachers and administrators aren't even going to be administering the test possibly. The principal of that school has been let go, even though there's no guilt thrown on her, and they've got a new superintendent now who wasn't involved in the scandal, so I don't know what's going to happen from all this, but there is a certain amount of shakeup. So.
Well, and when you think about, the administration of, say, the SAT tests, those are so strict, and, the College Board, I think, has ensured that, I don't think I've ever heard of, they misplace tests. I've heard of that happening, unfortunately, but I haven't heard of widespread scandals there. So, I'm not in favor of high-stakes testing, but as long as we're in this realm, maybe there's some lessons to be learned of how other institutions do this.
Absolutely.